Let's bring in Susan Del Percio, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst. Also here with us, NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins, who covers the dystopia and disinformation beat and has reported extensively on QAnon. Thank you both for joining me. Ben, let me start with you. You've been following this for years now. How surprised are you that something that began as online randos posting fantasies about their political opponents being strung up for paedophilia is now an ever-present force in a major political party that could take back Congress this year?
I'm not surprised at all. This is a big part of the Republican base now. It's a large part of their talking points, and they cannot avoid them. You sort of have to thread the needle here. I guess the surprising part is how quickly the evolution went into pretty blatant open homophobia in these places. Really, the genesis of this stuff in the mainstream part of the right isn't necessarily QAnon. QAnon is what they're winking at. It's why they know they have a base there. But the thing that they're winking at is this idea that basically any homosexual is a groomer of children. That's what you see in this Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. The idea that people who talk about sexuality to anyone under the age of 18 or something, people who talk about the idea they might have a husband if they're a man or a wife if they're a woman, they are implicitly trying to convince children to also be gay. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. But it's the big thing that's taken off on the far right recently. It's pretty much the only thing that these far right places talk about. They talk about Ukrainian biolabs, which is the Russian right-wing conspiracy theory that is trying to justify the Ukrainian invasion. And they talk about what they believe to be groomers. Basically, they share TikTok videos of teachers who are, gay, and they tell their kids that they're gay if they're asked, and they say they're grooming kids, that they're trying to get kids on it. And it's very dark stuff, but it happened in about a month, and it's very, very grim.
Yes. The speed is astonishing at the way that suddenly Disney is now on Fox and every right-wing news outlet nonstop, where Disney's being accused of being pro-pedophile and pro-groomer. You have to always, in a very dark way, you do have to admire the message discipline on the right, the way they can make these bonkers conspiracies mainstream so quickly. Susan, I have to ask you, Marjorie Taylor Greene is very concerned about sex trafficking of minors, she says. And yet here's some footage from the cross-country America First fundraising tour that she went on last year with Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's under federal investigation for sex trafficking. Investigators are looking into whether Gaetz slept with a 17-year-old female for money. He's not been charged with a crime. He denies all the accusations. But the irony here that a party that has people like Matt Gaetz in its ranks, that had people like Roy Moore run for the Senate in Alabama accused of child molestation, this is the party that wants to make pedophilia into a party political wedge issue?
Well, first, I'd just like to say Ben's reporting on this issue is so important, and everyone should read it because it is a great thread into understanding how this has all evolved over time. And a lot of times, I've often said this, I think that Donald Trump needs these folks more than these folks need Donald Trump. And while Marjorie Taylor Greene is, beyond an extremist, I'd like to say she's just, we have to write her off, but she is a large voice in the party right now, simply because Republicans do not have the courage or the backbone to stand up and say what she is saying, to call her out on what she's saying. The Republicans in the Senate hearing, specifically Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley, they are cowards, they are despicable, and they are anti-democratic, hating this country people for spewing those words. This justice stood there and judge took this line of questioning, which was deplorable. And I dare any of those men to be able to stand there for 1 second and keep their composure with such vile hatred spewed at them. There should be no room for this in the Republican Party.
But Susan, isn't that the problem, though? That it's one thing for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump to spout this nonsense, but Ted Cruz, whatever you think about him, he's not dumb. Like, when he goes all in on child sex abuse at a Senate confirmation hearing, he knows exactly what he's doing. And as you say, it's cowardice against the base. He wants to be president, and he's willing to take a QAnon base with him in his attempt to win the White House, right?
And anyone who does that, like Ted Cruz, hates this country and do not believe a word he says. Anyone who loves this country would never, ever get up and use that kind of conspiracy theory, especially someone who knows better. And let's be clear, this group is this is a group that, again, will always be happy finding a new leader. It's not just about Donald Trump, which Ben will tell you about. You now see the likes of Ted Cruz auditioning for the QAnon vote.
Yes.
That.
Ben, let me ask you this. You've followed this for a long time. Where does it go next? Because you've got, as you said, the timing is crazy here, because we just played a clip of Trump in 2020 defensively dealing with a question from Savannah Guthrie from White House Press Corps. It was controversial then. Now it's so open. 2 years later, you've got these members of Congress, Boebert, Green, people who had disowned QAnon, now basically running QAnon talking points. 15% of the American public believing this stuff. Where does it go from here?
Well, the thing with QAnon is to always push the line. They're habitual line steppers. That's the words I would say for what QAnon is. It's to always push the line of the Overton window further to the right, back to where it was in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. Just keep pushing it back. And they will latch on to social movements that are big at the time. They'll latch onto the CRT moral panic. They'll latch on to this same moral panic, this now anti-gay, this groomer moral panic that is being pushed by the very same people. That's what you're going to see in the future here. You're going to see constant dehumanization, the ability for people to make liberals or make people on the left appear as an other that can eventually be, used as, it's basically a way to set up, in their eyes, maybe potentially sectarian violence. That's how you get to these points.
Yep.
That's how you got to the Pizzagate shooter. That's how you get to all this QAnon violence. That's the point of this, is to otherize and dehumanize the other side.
We should remind our viewers that the FBI has referred in the past to QAnon as a domestic terror threat, and that is the reason why, because of what you're laying out there. Susan, last quick question to you. Ben mentioned at the start and just a moment ago about how this has become about anti-gay propaganda as well. This is about groomers. This is about age-old tropes about gay teachers preying on children. The Republican Party at one time seemed to have made its peace with gay rights, or at least gay marriage. The last president, even his vice president, Mike Pence, shut up about it while he was vice president. Now, the trans stuff, the pedophile stuff, it's all leading back in one direction, which is to roll back. We heard a Republican senator say, gay marriage, should that be on the table in the hearings? John Cornyn said, is that where the party's going now?
I think, unfortunately, temporarily, yes. We see state legislatures in red states around the nation looking to duplicate the bill in Florida. I do think that, unfortunately, this is where Republicans will go because they think that will help them win. It will eventually tear them down. I believe that in my heart of hearts. And they will have to basically weed out all of these people to create a decent party again.
Yeah, let's see if that happens. Certainly not anytime soon. Susan Del Percio, Ben Collins, thank you both for your analysis. Appreciate it. Hi, I'm Mehdi Hasan. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more of the Mehdi Hasan Show by clicking on any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thank you for watching.